don't know, guys. Are you sure about this? Traveling down to the bottom of the ocean sounds dangerous. I didn't exactly take the underwater fighting feat. That's because underwater fighting isn't a feat in 5th edition.
Yeah, you idiot. Besides, if you wanted to take feats, you shouldn't have been using all of your ASIs to pump your intelligence.
Well, I wanted to get smarter so that I could research all of these strange and exotic places we'll be going. I was also thinking about taking a level in Wizard.
You? A wizard? That's a good one.
Yeah, I know. I would be a really good wizard, actually. My intelligence is nearly 7 already. There's nothing like job security to put one's mind at ease. Oh dear, not again. You know, the wizard's chair is more comfortable than mine.
Welcome to the DM Lair. I'm Luke Hart, and I've been a Dungeon Master since high school. On this channel, I give practical Dungeon Master advice that you can implement at your game table. Okay, today in the Lair, we'll be talking about building exotic encounters for your games. You know, encounters that happen in cool places like jungles, underwater, or even on different planes of existence. And since not every encounter is a fight to the death, we'll also be considering social interactions and exploration as well. My first point is to emphasize the environment itself. I mean, holy crap, if you're fighting in the depths of the ocean, or on a precarious ledge in the mouth of an active volcano, or on a string of floating boulders in the elemental plane of air, your players should never be allowed to forget those facts. I suggest constantly reinforcing the environment throughout an encounter. The specific details of how exactly you do that are 100% up to you as the Dungeon Master. However, here are a bunch of examples to get your juices flowing. Depths of the ocean. Well, you have currents running across the area that will either double your movement or halve it, depending on which way you're going. A burst of bubbles in the water from a living rock formation temporarily obscures the entire area, causing the characters to be effectively blinded. And are your players carrying a little bit too much weight? Well, perhaps being more than lightly encumbered causes them to sink or have their movement halved. And that ledge in the mouth of an active volcano, well, the ledge is weak and crumbling. Standing within 5 feet of the edge has a 60% chance of causing the edge to crumble away. If it does, the character must make a dexterity saving throw or fall and just manage to grab the edge, though he's then dangling with the lava below him. Then the character must make an action to try to pull himself back up. This would probably be an athletics or acrobatics check. Every so often, a large bubble forms in the lava and bursts upward, spraying lava across the area. Everyone must make a dexterity save to avoid getting sprayed and burned. When the characters travel too close to lava flows, they must make constitution saving throws to avoid taking fire damage. And that string of boulders in the elemental plane of air, well, standing on a boulder causes it to sink. More than one PC standing on a boulder causes it to sink even faster. Of course, when nobody is standing on the boulders, they rise back up to their previous levels. And be careful, the boulders rotate. If characters leap from boulder to boulder, this sends them into spins and forces a dexterity save to avoid falling. Spinning boulders, of course, slowly become stationary. And then gusts of wind randomly pick up and blow against the PCs. Strong gusts force a strength saving throw to prevent being thrown from a boulder. These same gusts of wind make flying more difficult or easier depending on the direction of flight. And occasionally, thick clouds move across the area, heavily obscuring it and blinding the characters. And here's a really important point. These special effects can be used both in combats and in social and exploration encounters. In fact, these sorts of environmental effects should be a thing for as long as the characters are adventuring in the exotic locale. The only limit to how cool this can be for your players is your imagination. By the way, this video topic was chosen by my patrons, and I want to give a quick shout out to some of my newest patrons. Yokai, Kurt and Strad, thanks for joining my Patreon community. Oh, and if you'd like to be a part of supporting what we do around here, click the link down in the description to my Patreon page where you can see which tier is right for you. Alternatively, I publish inexpensive D&D 5th edition adventures over on DriveThruRPG, and every adventure you purchase saves one of my players' characters from certain doom. Link down below. Next main point. Emphasize the strange creatures your players will run into. What the heck is the point of adventuring in a super cool location if they don't run into equally interesting creatures? So pull out the monster manual, pull out Volo's Guide to Monsters, pull out Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, or whatever third-party resources you can get your filthy little hands on, and start looking for monsters that fit in with the environment. And if you're not sure what creatures live where, do a quick Google search for D&D monsters by environment, and you'll get any number of useful resources to help you. Now, you can just throw mundane creatures at them, and I definitely recommend doing some of that. But what you're really looking for here are the cool monsters, the ones that will get your players all jazzed up and make them remember the adventure for years to come. And let's face it, no one remembers running into a goldfish in the ocean depths, unless it's a gigantic man-eating goldfish that chases them for hours and only stops after taking off the bard's leg. I mean, he's just a bard, he didn't need it anyway. So we're talking about creatures like Sahuagin, Aboleths, oh that's a fun one, Magma Men, Azir, Abishai, Genies, Mind Flayers, Beholders. It just depends on where they are. Research the environment and find appropriate creatures to populate it with. Oh, and if we're talking about adventuring in a different plane of existence, I suggest cracking your Dungeon Master Guide open to Chapter 2 for an overview of the planes. There's tons of information in there that will not only inform you about which creatures to choose, but also give you information about the environment itself. Another important point too, make sure that your players don't only run into all those cool creatures as part of combats. Fighting stuff is great, but there also needs to be opportunities to interact with exotic creatures in ways that don't just involve slaughtering them. For instance, your players may be trapped in the Feywild, and they encounter a wild unicorn that holds the information they need to get back to their homeland. But just killing the unicorn does them no good. Instead, they must bargain with it. And let's imagine the unicorn requires a favor in exchange for the information. You see, there is a coven of night hags nearby, breeding a small army of meanlocks, and the unicorn wants them to put a stop to it. So it's talky-talky with the unicorn and stabby-stabby with the night hags, or not. Perhaps there is a diplomatic option open to the players. The possibilities are only limited by the imaginations of you and your players. Okay, so we all know that as much as me or any other equally persuasive and charismatic and strikingly handsome person will tell you to allow for non-combat options, there's definitely going to be some fighting involved. Which leads me to my next point. Emphasize the special battle tactics the natives use, and try to marry those tactics with their environment. Examples: the depths of the ocean. The Sahuagin shove the characters into currents that sweep them across the battlefield. The Aboleth fights in a pocket of bubbles, and the players can't see it, but the Aboleth can see them quite easily, what with its blind sight and all. Oh, what's that? An Aboleth doesn't have blind sight, you say? Well, we just gave it blind sight. Welcome to being the Dungeon Master and wielding absolute power. Oh, and your precarious ledges in the mouth of the volcano? Oh, this is gonna be fun. You know that red dragon they're fighting? Well, it plucks two of the characters from the ledge and plunges into the lava with them. Now, red dragons are immune to fire damage, of course, but I assure you, your paladin and bard aren't. And remember those crumbling ledges? Yeah, that dragon is smashing them with its tail, breaking them apart, and dumping the characters down into the lava. Sure hope they stocked up on Revivify scrolls. Floating boulders in the elemental plane of air. There's one thing you should remember when battling genies. They grant wishes. I wish for that boulder the barbarian is standing on to explode into fine dust, causing him to fall to his doom. Wish granted. Okay, maybe that's a little bit extreme and melodramatic, but air elementals certainly could send boulders into spins that could dump the characters off, and enemy warlocks could target the boulders with Eldritch Blast to reduce them to rubble. And how about some clouds? A nice thick cloud to obscure vision while balancing on precarious boulders while fighting some avian baddies. Yes, please. Next point. Adventuring in exotic environs and different planes of existence is fraught with difficulties and hazards. Make a point to emphasize them. Even make them the focus of a quest. Okay, so the heroes need to travel into the depths of the ocean to stop the evil aboleth overlord who's enslaving all underwater races. Great, but that's not happening until the characters can breathe underwater. And it's also a good idea to make sure they can move at normal speed through the water so they aren't at a distinct disadvantage. See, those two problems need to be solved before the heroes even venture into the ocean, and could be adventures in and of themselves. Find a hidden clutch of water-breathing potions. Make a deal with that coven of night hags to borrow several rings of underwater action, or just kill them and take them. Are you traveling to Cania in the Nine Hells? And are you aware that the cold is so bitter that every minute you're exposed to it, you take 1d6 cold damage? Well, now you are. And I suggest you figure something out before you all become frozen statues after but an hour into your quest. Mount Celestia is a wonderful place to travel through, what with all the angels and celestial beings keeping law and order. That is, of course, until your paladin has fallen from grace and is likely to earn the enmity of any celestial creature she comes across. Oh, and your bard? Yeah, there's no way a bunch of lawful good angels are going to put up with your bard. Not going to happen. So guess what? Your players need to do some good old-fashioned problem solving before they can even plane shift to Mount Celestia. By the way, all of this isn't just the Dungeon Master being a jerk to their players. This is the Dungeon Master creating interesting situations for their players to experience and creating challenges for them to overcome. And the last I checked, that's pretty much the job description of a Dungeon Master. Let me know down below what tips you have for encounters in exotic environments. Next week, we'll be discussing spells that break your dungeon and what to do about them. And in the meantime, click right here to learn more about making awesome encounters for your players. And until next time, let's play D&D.